I'll do it at 6:30. Do you want to give an additional 5 minutes?
Sure.
Since we'll have a quorum.
Yes.
All right. So 5 more minutes.
So Chair, we don't
The
have.
only person that I know will not be here tonight is
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Mhm.
I don't have word about anyone else to you.
No, no one has informed me.
So Chair, we don't have one, we can still go to the agenda, like, except for the approval of the minutes, or
Yeah.
we don't.
We can, yeah, and we can't vote on anything. We can turn it into a quick workshop.
Okay.
Yes.
Today is Thursday, May 18th, 2023. It's currently 6:33. We will call the meeting to order for the Historic Town of Eatonville Community Redevelopment Agency. Mrs. King, do you have a quorum?
Yes, we do, and I'll do a roll call. We have Director Randolph,
Yes.
Director Creighton,
Here.
Director M. Daniels,
Present.
Chair Gardner.
Here.
All right.
Thank you very much. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is public participation. Do you have any?
We do. We have Angela Johnson.
Good evening, Chair, board members,
Good evening.
residents. A couple things. One, and only because it's obvious this evening, if you guys can outline the board absentee policy. Also, in your discussion tonight, although it's not on the agenda, if you have time, a status of the paint, plant, and pay program that was discussed at the last board meeting. On number 6, the federal funds, and just some clarity on that. I mean, in my understanding, although those funds may have been appropriated, if they would never carry through to the budget, I spoke with someone in the community, but I'll let you guys update me on the status of it because I'm not sure if they were actually awarded. And then I would like to come before you as a representative of the Catalina Park Community Group leadership team, I've asked the former executive director and did a public records request for a master plan for the Francis Jerry Park. Our organization or group of residents, as we're beginning to formalize, we're building some relationships with some possible partners, corporate partners that may be able to work with us to do some things in the park. However, the request is, what is the plan for the park? So if there is not a current master plan, I'm asking whether, I'm asking for the board to add it as a decision on your next board meeting agenda to fund a master plan for the Catalina Park, for the Francis Jerry Park, with a certain timeline that's going to be completed so that we can then possibly partner with the town, work alongside with the town, bringing forward whatever relationships we have to get something done in the park. Because, you know, one of the things that concerns me mostly is you probably got 50% of the sidewalks in the park that are dangerous. They're cracked, they're uneven, in my opinion, opening the door for possible injury and litigation with the town of Edenville CRA, the TOCRA. Secondly, there are the decks, and the only thing that we have up that is barely visible to the eye is a sign that says, enter at your own risk or something like that. My suggestion would be either you have something that is clearly visible, outlining the danger to reduce your risk of liability and litigation, or to remove them. So the major ask is that the board considers on your next agenda the approval of moving forward with, and I'm not sure if it's an RPO, if you already have a vendor outline, but with a master plan for the Francis Jerry Park, with a timeline that is going to be completed within, please.
Thank you.
We have no more.
Our next item on the agenda is motion to approve the CRA minutes from April 20th, 2020. We stopped doing the CRA.
Okay.
Why was something?
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure, because normally that's normal.
For the, I did it like the first time, then the agenda set, yes. So approval of CRA meeting minutes for April 20th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Our first item up is presentation on the Health CDC Neighborhood Stabilization. Would you like to introduce it?
Yes, we have before us today this is Nicole Oriole, who is the Administrative Executive Director of the Health Incorporated, located here in Edenville, and she is going to do a presentation on neighborhood stabilization.
Thank you. She gave me a promotion by making me executive director. I'm still a deputy, so, but I appreciate it. Okay, so Health CDC, thank you for this opportunity to share Health CDC with you and the Edenville community. My name is Nicole Oriole. I serve as the deputy executive director at Health Community Development Corporation. HELP stands for Helping Everyone Live Prosperously. Our offices are located inside the Life Center Church. Our door is located on the church offices side of the building, and our sign is in the window, just in case you want to come and visit. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, has approved and regulated Health CDC as a housing counseling agency since 2005. Our mission is to inspire and empower families to build financial security, stability, and wealth through financial education and counseling. Our vision is to be a revitalized community where people prosper and contribute to community success. Down button. There we go. So these are the topics I will share with you. I know I don't have the full amount of time that I thought, so I'm going to breeze through the services and really get down to the Linking Legacies program. Here is a brief video on what a housing counselor does during our counseling session.
When it comes to that roof over your head, probably your biggest expense every month, there are lots of important questions. Should you rent? Should you buy? And what can you afford? What mortgage options are best for you? How do you get your finances and your credit under control and make a workable budget so you can make your mortgage payment and all your other expenses? If you already own that roof over your head but are having a tough time making your payments, how can you avoid foreclosure and keep your home? It can all be so stressful and confusing. You need the right answers from people you can trust. A HUD-approved housing counselor is an experienced trained professional who can help you make the decisions that are right for you and your unique situation. You don't have to go it alone. To find a HUD-certified housing counseling agency near you, go to HUD.gov or phone 800-569-4287. When it comes to that roof over your head, the answers you can trust, from people you can trust, and have a home that's right for you. Dare?
That was Dare to Dream. So, when it comes to neighborhood stabilization, the best plan or successful strategy has to be multidimensional. And HELP CDC would like to be a part of any plan that would help to promote a stable and successful community here in Eatonville. As a HUD agency, we focus on collaborating with others in this space of housing and community development. So I look forward to working with you all to identify resources or collaborations that will help you all achieve your vision for Eatonville. So our first program that we have, we deal with money management. Our Commit to 6 program is trademarked for HELP CDC. We focus on those 6 topics that we feel if you get those under your belt, you could be stable. So banking basics is for people to start a relationship with the banks, because a lot of our people like to go to cash services and think Amscot, Walmart, there's always a line at the services counter. So we really need to help them establish relationships with the banks, especially if they want to buy a house in the future. We want to help them with their credit reports, how to dispute problems and things on the credit report, their credit scores, how to maintain, repair, or improve their credit, debt management, housing stability, meaning where they're living now, as in addition to where they would like to be. And a spending and saving plan is just the FDIC's newer way of saying a budget. Because when you say budget, people they know what you're talking about, but it doesn't really tell you what you're doing. By saying a spending and saving plan, it's clear to anyone, even an elementary school kid, that it's about making a plan for your money. We also help people on their path to home ownership with one-on-one private appointments with the counselors, and we also do group education workshops for down payment assistance eligibility. Those classes are done on the weekends, on a Saturday. It's usually an 8-hour class, 6 to 8 hours, and at the end of it, they get a certificate that they can use for down payment assistance with Orange County, Seminole County, Lake, and Volusia. When it comes to your home ownership team, these are all the people that are usually involved according to the national industry standards. As you can see, everyone on there makes money off of the sale except for a housing counselor. We are unbiased, we're there for the client, we have no skin in the game, and so that's why it's good for them to work with a housing counselor throughout their process. Our next home buyers workshop is on Saturday, June 20th at the Holden Heights Community Center. We have a contract with Orange County Community Center to use their all of their centers for workshops. So we rotate once a month around Orange County. Lastly, most important is homeownership preservation. How do we keep Eatonville? How do we keep our communities? It's by preserving the people that already have them and giving them options to keep it. So first, we deal with the technical term mortgage delinquency and default. That's what HUD likes to call it. But when the people call our agency, they specifically say, I need help working with my lender. I need to get a modification. So that's what we help them do, work with their lenders, because by the time they call us, they've stopped answering the phone, they've stopped opening mail, and they're just pretty much hiding behind the curtain. So we try to help them to come out from the dark and let's start engaging your lender. We do reverse mortgage counseling for seniors in English and in Spanish because they need an unbiased individual to tell them about the process. Once again, we don't make any money off of reverse mortgage, so they want to make sure, HUD wanted to make sure the seniors weren't getting taken advantage of. So now they are required to get counseling to do reverse mortgages. Now the main jam is our new program for Eatonville residents only, and that is the Lincoln Legacies program created by HELP CDC, along with Community Legal Services which is now just Community Legal Services. They used to be of Mid-Florida. And we also partner with FAMU College of Law. So let's talk about heirs property real quick. Heirs property is, like the cartoon says, it's when your property has been transferred to multiple family members by inheritance, usually without a will. Typically, it is created when land is transferred from someone who dies without a will to that person's spouse, their children, or other heirs. Meaning, if you pass it on and it's not specifically given to at least one person to take care of the whole estate, when you have multiple people involved, then everybody has to be on the same page in order for you to do anything with the property. So how many families do we know that have 8 people that can all say, yes, we want to do something all in one sitting? So you're going to need help. Now, these are all of the possible heirs property issues and how heirs properties can have a negative effect on the community. Because they're not taking care of the homes or they're not local, then they're not here to see or drive down the street to see that their house or property is an eyesore and they need to do something about it. Well, maybe they don't have the resources, or maybe they don't know where to turn, or maybe they have trouble with their family. So these are all of the possible issues that arise when you have heirs property or a property that's been handed to the family without it being clearly specified what to do. So the goal, as you can see for Lincoln Legacies, is to advance family wealth building through preserving and stabilizing home ownership, while simultaneously increasing home equity by addressing systemic barriers such as a lack of clear title due to heirs property. So we plan to do that through community engagement, education, and then also through this program. So Help CDC raised $265,000 only for Eatonville. If you live across the street in Maitland, I can't help you. But if you live in Eatonville, I got you all day long. So we raised $265,000 specifically for this program that offers financial education. The FAMU Law Fellows do the property research and things like that. Now, we already had we had 3 law fellows do research on the properties in Eatonville. They researched 894 Eatonville homes. Of those 894, 402 are potential heirs properties, based on how they're listed in the public record for Orange County. That's where the investors can find you and start running you down to try to get your property, is public record. So 402, that's nearly half, that could possibly be flipped into $500,000 homes if the wrong people get their hands on it. So we really have to help the individuals in there preserve their home ownership. They will need to become mortgage ready. Some may need to become credit ready, because once you decide which family member is going to take the lead, then they need to be on paper, they have to look right, period. So we have community legal services who will help the families do a will. They're also going to help them do the probate process. They raised money specifically for the probate process. We raise money specifically for the financial education and to help each household. We're also going to help them enroll in homestead exemption once they get their title in order, because that will help reduce how much they pay for taxes. So community legal services raised $290,000. The only difference is I was confident that I could spend all my money in Eatonville. So all of mine is for Eatonville. Theirs covers Eatonville and the 11 counties that they serve. Florida A&M College, their law fellows that we have working with us do the property research, and they'll also help out with genealogy, because at a certain point, we'll have to sit down with the families and find out whose cousins, who had a baby, who died. Let's get the Bibles, the wills. We got to get all of that stuff and get it organized. So the FAMU Law Fellows will help with that. These are our program outcomes. We really want to help clear title so that they can start doing something with their property. That's the main goal, period. Whether they want to sell it, keep it, rehab it, but just to clear it from title so they don't lose it completely by someone else coming in and taking it. We have an event on Saturday from 9 till 12. We're going to be covering the Eatonville program, and other things like job training, because when I sat in one of the meetings, I heard people say, we don't make enough money, we can't afford to live in Eatonville if it were to change, and we need to save our homes. So I tried to put enough things in the program this Saturday that covered or checks the boxes. So we have job training, we have Unity of Eatonville, who's gonna talk about saving money, we'll talk about home ownership, and we're gonna dive into the program. We have someone there that's going to talk about how to deal with difficult family members, how to start those difficult conversations about death with the seniors and things like that. We also have someone from Mississippi who will be joining us through Zoom, who works for the Federation of Cooperatives, and she'll be talking about mediation for families during the process and how to go about it. So it's going to be a jam-packed day. We have an open door policy so that no one feels like they have to come and stay for the whole 3 hours, because some people say, I don't want, if I'm not coming for all 3, then I don't want to go at all. We'd rather you get the agenda and come for what you need to hear and then leave if you'd like to. But we know once you sit down, we got you. Because we'll be playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Family Feud, giving away money, food, games, the whole gamut. So we're looking forward to Saturday's activity. And that's all we have for you. That would be lickety split. You have any questions
I have a
about?
question.
Yeah.
Do you have a weatherization program?
We do not have a weatherization program, but we are in the process of partnering with Rebuild Tampa, which is now opening up a Rebuild Orlando. And they have a number of programs specifically that will do wonders here in Eatonville. The weatherization, roofs, bring houses up to code for health violations for seniors and things like that. So I'm in the process of getting their information, and then I'd like to come back and share it with you.
Yeah, that's great. That would be really needed. There's quite a few people here that need help on their roofs. And some people just basically just need some basic home repairs.
Yes.
So at the moment, you do not have those types of programs.
We do not have that program, but we have access to the program as a HUD agency. So it's just a matter of doing the paperwork. Not only that, but being a HUD agency in Eatonville, I'm approached by banks all the time. It's merely an ask, but I just don't know what to ask for. So that's why I want to come and find out what the town needs, and I'll go out and get it. You want a new pool? I can get you that. You want some streets? I got that for you. I just need to know what you need, and then I have the connections through HUD and through our national organizations to make it happen. Because everybody wants to see Eatonville thrive. They really
I just want to
do.
mention that Orange County Housing last week informed me that they have replenished all their funds for the rehab programs. And they'll have funds for down payment assistance. So you also have that too.
Our function for down payment assistance is to give them the education that gets them the certificate that makes them eligible to get the down payment assistance.
Okay,
Without a certificate, you couldn't apply.
okay. Thank you.
Very great information. Question for you. How do you disseminate this information out to the residents of the historic town of Eatonville? How are you disseminating it out?
Well, right now I've tried to attend meetings. I don't really know the best way to make the biggest impact. So we're ordering yard signs as a suggestion by Angela and things like that to like visibly so that you can at least see. And I also thought about maybe buying if you guys would allow me to put something in the water bill, I would definitely do it. But the problem is that if I don't spend this money, I have to give it back.
Yeah, you don't want to give it back.
Yes, we don't want
You
that.
definitely don't want to give it back.
Wells Fargo contributed $150 for 2 years. Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta is giving us $75,000 for 1 year. HUD gave us $35,000, Bank United gave us $5,000, and I'm still going back to look for more money. Because what I realized, there was a gap in what we were doing. If we clear the title, we get them all financially educated, but if they still owe back taxes, then what are we gonna do? So I went out and got the $75,000 to cover that. That's first come, first served. So when that's gone, it's gone, but at least I wanted to have something there if they needed it and they were eligible for it.
Next question. You have $265,000 available to assist. About how many homeowners would that assist with? About how many people would that cover?
The goal was to serve 35 people over a 2-year period, meaning completely from soup to nuts. 35. Saturday is going to be my first big hook to see if we can get people. Community Legal Services has started working. They have maybe about 8 Eatonville people that we've already sent over to them. So we have started, but we just need to, the goal was to do maybe 15 to 20 in the first year and then 15 or so in the second.
Right, because I sit on a couple other boards too, and you're right on it. One of the biggest problems is that clear title. That clear title is catching a lot of people who you thought owned it and really don't own it, who snuck their name onto a title. So I think you have some very great information that the community really could hear from, and I look forward to talking with you about it.
The only other thing I would add is people in our community tend to use the quitclaim deed as their way of transacting property, and that is what is a big problem. So we really have to give them the information to know there is a process. And right now, while it's free, we want to get as many wills out there as possible. That's our main thing. If we can do 400 wills to keep those properties at least in Eatonville, then we've done our job as far as
Their homes, that's what we should be doing. And I think this is a very good resource that we have here in partnering with our CRA agency, and whatever we can do to get the information out, that's what we're going to do.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ms. Nicole. Thank you for your presentation. I'm actually very familiar with your program. You guys have been at Life Center for some time now, especially with the down payment assistance education program. So thank you for being present in our community, whether we knew about it or not. Director Daniels took a handful of my words out of my mouth, but I saw you guys at the Zorna Hurston Festival, so I want to say thank you for that, because a lot of us do attend that festival, so your presence for me was felt. I know the Linking Legacies program is new, so it was wonderful to hear about that. Extremely emotional for somebody like me, who's a fifth-generation resident and owns property in the town of Eatonville. Again, one of my biggest questions was, what does your community door-to-door look like? Are you all looking for volunteers that can potentially help disseminate some of this information? If so, should we just send them over to your office with their double strollers ready to walk door to door? So that is one of my questions. Additionally, one of my questions was some of your Eatonville success stories. I think when some of our neighbors hear about the success that you all have had in the community, Ms. Johnson across the street saved her grandmother's house, I can save my grandmother's house as well. So I think that will be huge in kind of drawing some of those feet in the streets to your door. So I would love to hear about some more of your Eatonville success stories. My last point or question is, are you all currently working with any real estate attorneys in the area or title offices specifically? I know you're working with the College of Law. I am a Rattler. I am proud of that. But are there any real estate attorneys that are on board with your team that you guys are connected to, that not just for the wills, probates, estates, and trust portion of it all, but just some of those encroachment issues that might be a hindrance in addition to some of the financial things? Could you touch on that briefly?
That access would be through our connection with Community Legal Services.
Okay.
So if I'm speaking with someone and I hear anything that is a red flag, then I usually refer them directly. So because I'm working directly with a specific attorney, if I know the person's information, I will send it to her specifically and say, call this person. But if they call the helpline, attorneys actually answer their helpline. It's not just, Jimmy Joe who's working a 5-hour job. So if they call the helpline, they can still get routed to the right real estate people. But do I have any? No. Community Legal Service was willing to train attorneys that live in Eatonville specifically. They could get CLEs and get additional training so that we have attorneys within Eatonville that can help Eatonville residents. So if you know of any attorneys, let us know, because they can get in as well.
Amazing, thank you.
Just a quick question. When you talk about reverse mortgages, I know 60 to 90 days for them to, there's a couple of streets, probably in Lake Lovely, that it's like a host of houses were affected by that, and like 3 of them are empty because they lost the homes. But my question is, for those persons that currently have, it says that you're going to have pros and cons of reverse mortgages. Are you inviting those persons that already have them, considering them? If so, for those that have reverse mortgages, are you assisting them, and how is your assistance? Just more informational?
For Saturday, it's more informational, but she will be there, so she will be able to, we'll have an area set up if anyone wants a private conversation on the side. We're gonna have little spaces set up. But for people who already have a reverse mortgage, you're kind of locked in, but now you can get the information for how you can get around certain things within it. So yes, she is able to answer those questions, but that's why we're trying to do it on the front end from now on, so that before
Yeah.
people go into it.
Absolutely.
Because when the senior's on the phone by themselves with the counselor, they should have the beneficiary on to hear exactly what's expected of them, but they don't always want their kids in their business.
And I was getting ready to say that they did not, the parents did not tell them.
Right.
And the parents even shared some of the money they received, but the kids didn't know where the money came from.
Right.
So then after the parents passed away, then they find out what they're now stuck with.
Right.
You know, so, and that's killing us.
It is.
It's killing us. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last question. I heard you mention Wells Fargo and a couple other banks. Are you looking for other CRAs for banks? Because a lot of the bank CRAs are letting loose money right now in urban communities. Are you still searching for a local institution that's doing that?
I don't have to search because we are in Edenville.
Right.
We're the first black municipality, and that's all I have to say. So once I go with that, it's not a problem, but I just don't know what to ask for. I can ask for money for me, you know, but I really want.
You have a more strategic.
And could you then deed restrict it so that you get right of first refusal should they sell it?
I
Yeah.
believe we could, but anytime I say that, my attorney Darlene starts jumping on my, you know. So I would run everything by the right people to make sure that that would be possible. But I know we have funds because we haven't been able to buy any other properties.
Okay, the reason I said this, the town, once everything gets structured correctly, we have an affordable housing linkage fee. So with that, we do once, if I don't care if a home is being built, if it's not in the affordable range, then they have to pay 50 cents per square footage, even for the project down there, the apartment complex. So anything, and with that as a pot of money, that can be used to fix roofs, however the policy is written to spend that money. So it's just, okay.
It may have to become a community land trust situation, and I know that some people have different opinions about it, but when I think about what everyone was saying, we want to keep everything affordable, we want to keep it inexpensive, then one of the ways to do it is through community land trust, when Edenville owns the dirt, and no matter what gets built on there, it's going to be affordable.
I agree.
That's the way to lock it down. There's really no other way. Otherwise, anybody can sell it for whatever they want, like $289,000 for that one on the corner.
I agree.
But can we, and I know we gotta move on, but can we be clear with the difference between affordable and low income? Because when we say affordable, a lot of people look at what they think, but it's determined about the area, not just Edenville, but the Central Florida area. Because what's now considered affordable for a house is what, $279, $289 is considered affordable?
For a townhouse or a condo, yes.
Right. So when we throw that out there, a lot of people say, oh, we need more affordable. Is that really affordable when the average salary here in the town of Edenville is $27,000? That's more of a low income than affordable.
But that's where your community land trust would come in, because it's going to take that dirt out of the price, and then it's just on the house. There's definitely,
Assistance,
it'll work, and it's a starter house, and then if they're able to move on to the next house, then so be it, but they can't turn around and sell it for $500,000. It's limited on how much they could sell it for.
So we need tiny homes.
But the tiny homes are looking pretty nice
That's what I'm saying.
these days. You can't even tell when you drive by.
Nice.
You can't tell.
a
And
lot
they're
of
covered under
communities are
FEMA.
going- Right, and a lot of
Modular
those
homes are now
communities
covered under
going towards
FEMA.
the tiny homes. When you put 4 or 5 of them on an acre, that's
It
helping
works.
some families.
It works.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I love all of these questions. Thank you for having me. I look
Great
forward to coming back.
All right, we'll move on to the monthly financial report. You ready to respond? Or if you have any questions about the financial report. If there are no questions, we're going to keep it moving.
I have some questions. You on the financial report?
Correct.
Okay. In reviewing the financial report, I'm not gonna really spend a lot of time with this, but we have two categories that are over. The account balances are way over. And I know we have to fix we need to amend some of the items on
I
Thank you.
just wanted to confirm that, those professional services would be referring to something like the 15,000 we were looking to spend for the investigation, those one-time fees versus those recurring fees such as the executive director's, salary in addition to the agency attorney's salary, which was confirmed.
Correct. So just like, I believe last month or the month before, we took the $1,400 out for the auditor. That was a one-time payment, for the year, so that came out of professional services.
So, you and Mr. Jackson are the only two that's up on contractual services right now?
Yes.
Can I request both of them contract if possible? And then a breakdown on how much, because I hear Director Creighton and Director Randolph. We have to be very clear, that's why I said we have to break these budgets down so we can actually see which part of that line item is overstated and all that. So if I can see both of y'all contract and then also how much each of you have been paid for the year, that'd be great for me.
I will send it to each of you.
You know, I'm quite sure that, this offset that we have here is contributing to, if we had a program, we would be spending more, maybe operational expenses, like supplies and, duplicating and those types of things, printing and what have you. But because we don't have a program, we don't have anything that we're spending funds on there other than salaries and, insurance and the things like that, just to keep the agency lights on. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if we had a program, I'm quite sure a lot of these expenses that we are, not over, but under, will probably be absorbed by those costs.
And I hear you, Director Randolph. I also understand what Mrs. Presley presented on the town side. So I think we can leverage a lot of these expenses and different things by having the CRA up under the town side and all those things. So I can kind of see that.
Okay.
And it's on 2 employees right now, right?
Yes.
Yourself and the
Part-time.
assistant. So no, we haven't really did any, how are we gonna account for the fiscal coordinating that's been coming up? That's just coming off of the town side. So has the town billed us anything
No, we have not been billed by the town as of yet.
this whole fiscal year?
No.
Okay. So that's going, this number's gonna completely change.
Mrs. Nicole, I'm sorry, maybe the next meeting, won't spend a lot of time with it because I know it's complicated. The, tax increment, financing for the expenditures is $730,000. Can we have some information on that at the next meeting, please?
Sure.
What's that in your
I believe I gave it to you a couple meetings ago, but I'm more than happy to send it to you again.
Okay. Thank you.
And since we're talking about finances, I know it kind of goes in with it. Attorney Checker brought up a good point in the town side. Just be thinking about budgets to go along because we got to incorporate that into the town budget and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure, since we talk about finances, I think this is the appropriate time to be talking about it. Was just to make sure that we're starting to think about next year's budget for the CRA, so those budgets can mirror and then
I have
seemingly move.
I have met with Ms. Katrina, Ms. Gibson, in order to do that. So the CRA budget hearings will be at the same time as the town budget hearings, since we're trying to bring, both agencies together. We would be here without the town, so we'll be doing the budget at the same time.
Thank you.
That's it? Any other questions? All right. Item number 4. You had a question? Oh, I thought you had a question. Investigation results.
So the investigation results from Demand Star, no firm or any one attorney bid on the investigation. We had 4 that looked at the RFP, but no one bid. So at this time, I wanted to know the recommendation of the board, how you would like me to move forward when it comes to this investigation.
You know, since, the outcome of this, you said 4 looked at it, but they did not express or send in.
I had no one that expressed interest.
Okay. Well, to my opinion, I think what we need to do is that, we need to move to the next level. And, I would like for the FDLE to be considered. Because I can see this, maybe being the problem, trying to get someone to really commit to this. We've already, passed, a lot of time has already passed, have been overextended for the completion of this, so we need to move to the next level.
Attorney Jackson, could you give some direction to Director Randolph in regards to the next level, FDLE?
What I believe I'm hearing is that Director Randolph would like to refer this matter over to FDLE. I believe that in order to do that, there would have to be a clear and concise report submitted to FDLE as to what it is that is being requested to be looked at. And then they will, at that time, make a determination as to whether or not they would want to take a look at it or not.
Well, all the information is here as far as under this, the next item, which is the special investigation. So the information is here. It's really nothing that I can see at this point, that I can see now, that actually a lawyer would have to do, because everything is already here. The work is already done. The documents are already done. The documentation has already been documented. So, and this goes down to number 5 under the special investigation. It's addressing the same or similar issue. So I think we need to move on to the FDLE and try to put some closure on this and move on.
Question for the executive director. Do we receive any feedback from any of the bid lookers at all? Like why they might not have been interested, you know, the price wasn't appealing, scope of work was unclear, no feedback at all?
No feedback.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm still unclear. What is the next step for Director Randolph to do a
I'm
complaint to
gonna
the state attorney?
I'm gonna allow Attorney Jackson to proceed with the procedures, whatever is needed in order to move this where it needs to go.
I was clear on what you said. What I'm asking Attorney Jackson is to make it clear what those steps would be. So instead of saying whatever it is, I'm asking him to share what that next step would be.
Attorney.
So the next step would have to be for this board to vote in order to authorize me to refer the matter over to FDLE by providing the documentation that has been compiled up until this point.
So are you saying that the board has to authorize that, or is this something that Director
If
Randolph can do?
If I'm being asked to do it, the board will have to authorize it. However, any individual board member can, on their own volition, submit it to FDLE, but if I'm being asked to do it, I would have to get the board's authorization for me to move forward from this point.
Okay, so will that be in the way of a motion?
I'm sorry?
Will that be in the way of a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's not an item on the agenda.
Pardon?
I hear you, that's not an item on the agenda, the motion.
Okay, well, we'll do it, I can make a motion, can I make a motion?
So it has to be an agenda item.
An agenda,
Yes,
okay, we'll
ma'am.
make it
An action
the next.
item on the agenda, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine, we'll make an agenda item for the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Is there an option to resubmit the RFP at all, or is FDLE our only option at this point?
There have been times when, are you able to identify the individuals who have looked at the RFP?
Yes.
So there have been times where you can contact them and ask them, why is it that they're not interested in the RFP, and then make a determination based on what their feedback is. They may say something along the lines of, the money, the fee, the contracted fee is not adequate for the services that will be provided. Or they may just say, this is just something we're not interested in, we don't want to involve ourselves with this type of investigation. But it may be helpful if you feel comfortable with reaching out to them and saying, hey, listen, I saw that you looked at this and that you did not submit an RFP. Is there a reason? And then that'll help you to frame if it's because of the cost of it or if it's because of the scope of the investigation. And I would, excuse me, I would probably suggest or recommend doing that before any next steps. That would be my recommendation.
Do we know what our auditor said about the transaction? Like, isn't that just a quick look-see right there by the auditor? Like, why, when an audit is done, they look at the transactions. Isn't that just a quick step that could take you? Do we know what the auditor's results were? Because they would look at the policy, make sure the policy was followed. I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, if I remember, we had stuff from RMS and from Phil Diamond's office, right?
No, I mean, I'm speaking of just your basic CRA audit that was just done. This occurred in 2022, or that might be in this,
I think it's in
in this audit. Okay. So why don't we at least wait until the auditor audits, that's just, when the auditor audits, then they make sure that expenditures have followed the policy of the town. If there is a question, they bring it up. If there is a problem at that point, then I could see if you want to take a step, but at least do that. I mean, I just,
So when is this audit? When is this audit going to be complete?
we were just talking about, it's gonna be concurrent with the town's audit, so
Yes.
audits have to be done by the end, well, it's due in March 31st, so it'll be June.
So the auditor will be here, if I'm not mistaken, next week, conducting.
So next week, so when is the suspense date that the audit will be complete?
And it's supposed to be done by the end of June. It's supposed to be completed. The final deadline. The initial was March 31st, but by the end of June, it should be at least six months. I mean, that just seems like a prudent decision to make.
End of June. So if I think about bureaucracy, FDLE and all that, the time we submit it or anything prior to that, they probably won't look at it, and Attorney, you can help me. They probably won't look at it till maybe the end of June, maybe July.
Possibly, yes, sir.
No, I'm saying, if we're saying that I have a rough draft, because it's not a witch hunt for me. To me, it's about just making sure we have done the right thing with taxpayer dollar and accountability. So if you're saying this audit is coming, and that's one of the things that they're gonna look at.
No, I'm not the auditor. What I'm saying is at least wait, and I don't know how that process works. If we can ask the auditor, hey, look at this, I don't see why that would be, even if it's separate to what they choose, They choose what they're going to review.
Right, and see, that was my thing, because a lot of times when audits come in non-profits and corporate, they'll come in and look at only certain things, they pick and choose what they may decide to look at. Now, if we can have them look at that, a part of it, then we may have to adjust pricing for them to look at that a little bit extra, then, who will do that? Is that Ms. Bonds who will have communication with them on that?
Between Ms. Bonds and the finance director.
So, if, I don't have a problem with June, this is more than, I don't have a problem with waiting to June, but I would love to see that email communication go out like tomorrow, because I mean, they need to know that, because we can't, the worst thing is for us to try to spring it on them once they come in a week or two and they say, hey, I need you to do this, and they've already got their timeline and all that stuff done. If we can go ahead and get that in their hands, and they say that's something that they will look at our request, then I don't have a problem with waiting to the end of June. If not, then I'm with, let's go ahead and move this thing so we can put it to rest or do whatever needs to be done. That's just my opinion.
I mean, there's still nothing stopping you from doing and I keep saying the same thing, filing a complaint with the state attorney's office. And if it rises to the level of needing to go to the, what did we just say? FDLE, then they do that. But they would have looked at it before. I mean, there's already a process there that can be taken by any individual, that every single person up here that thinks a wrongdoing has occurred can file it. I mean, you don't have to wait for the audit, and the audit could be something else, in addition to. I mean, whatever allows us to move on is what I want. Whatever allows us to move on. This is over a year. So, I mean,
I don't really think it matters whether or not it's a year, 2 or 3 years old.
It kind of does, but.
No, not really, because whatever has happened has happened. We need to be very transparent as elected officials to do the right thing. This should not be swept under the rug. And you say it doesn't matter, but it does matter. We have had books missing, files missing.
Wait, stop.
Unlicensed contractors.
You're putting that on the record, but
We have
please be
had
specific.
$71,000 check that was written. We have all these things that were done inappropriately, and it needs to be addressed, and it should be addressed. So the FDLE, let them faithfully do what they do, let the auditor does whatever they do. Whatever they're going to do with the audit has nothing to do with this whatsoever. It's about being transparent and trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing. It was no different than Mr. Benderson, his case. Did that go before the FDLE?
Sure did. I'm not telling you not to.
Okay, well then, if you're not telling me not to do it, then what is the problem?
Please listen. What I am saying is the same thing I've said, is that before we spend $15,000, I stated that any person, individually, you can submit a complaint to the state attorney's office. If they find cause, then it will elevate to FDLE on criminal actions. So I have never, I want to make that clear, said anything other than I literally said put your name on it specifically. Because they can get fined. Every single person up here can submit a complaint, and that's free, and they'll do it just as thoroughly. And the reason I like it is because everyone associated with the transaction gets to tell their side of the story, and it won't be slanted like these documents are.
No, I don't think it is. Everything in here is factual.
I said slanted. We can slant
It's
that.
factual.
So,
Yes.
but that is what I was saying.
So I guess to be the person to say this, it can be submitted to the state attorney right now, it can be submitted to FDLE right now, and I would still say submitted to the auditors, because, dealing with auditing, like I said, they may look at it, they may not, so they come in, they ask for 5 checks, and that may not be the check they look at. So it is, if we tell them what we want to look at, then that's one thing, and they will do it. But I think we have to go ahead and put it in there if that's what we're looking at. But I do think, and Chair, I hear you that it's been over a year, but even though the law is still not, something has happened, we have to do the right thing. We have to make sure, because that's one of the biggest things that's been said about our community is accountability, especially with financing and all that. Because to whom much is given, much is required, and we have to make sure that we're accountable for that.
What do you mean ignorance of the law, sir? No, and I just, this is such a.
No,
and
I'm
you
not,
can
no,
tell-
I'm saying,
I'm
no,
and I'm trying to be calm.
I'm not calling you ignorant, I'm just saying.
No, you
that-
say ignorance of the law, meaning if you don't know it, that's not an excuse. And what I'm saying is, and you feel a frustration with me, not because it matters. It doesn't matter if you do an investigation. The frustration you probably feel from me is that I just keep running, just like March 1st. I remember the day that I said, this doesn't make sense. Why would we even do this? And you push forward the motion for this resolution to pass, and you were told that day that it was inadequate. But now you want to come back, well, you tried to come back then to fire him again, but you asked, this is your resolution.
What?
And so my point is, we need to think things through, and I'm going to keep saying that before we push it on this agenda. We need to think it through thoroughly, because this whole thing could have been avoided without that resolution authorizing specifically to carry out based on VB, or I say V is 5B. I mean, and I want to make, and when I say slanted, when I read this resolution here is quite slanted. So as long as we have the transcripts from that night, and all of the documentation, not just selected documentation to tell the slanted story, I'm always okay with that. But after a year, it has taken too long, and it does need to be settled, one way or the other.
So I'll say this. One thing, I have no problem putting my name on anything. I don't hide behind things. And if it needs to push forward, I can have no problem pushing forward. And when I said my statement ago about ignorance of the law, Florida statute, because you went back to it, so I want to address that. Florida statute says 20 weeks, correct? 20 weeks. So even if you disagree with the firing and all that, the most someone can be paid is 20 weeks, correct?
But y'all signed well, I'm saying y'all, a contract was signed, and the statute was the same at the time of the contract. I'm not,
Okay.
wait a minute, no. When you did the resolution, you said according to the contract. You should have held off on doing anything until you cleared all that up. You didn't. And I understand, I remember the conversation that night. So, and I'm not going to go back there, but what I'm saying is the full conversation needs to be had, because you were told, and whether that's the law or not the law, that wasn't for me. Remember, I'm the one that said, no, it was not, until it was pushed again, yes, he was. So what I'm saying is, whatever you're going to do, let's do it. I mean, just get it done so we can move on. That is what I'm saying.
So,
I'm not here to argue the federal laws or anything like that, because I'm not in a position to do that.
Right, so I'll address it to Attorney Jackson right now. And if we're not going to move forward, then I'll go ahead and move forward. I'll put on the record, I'll say that. So Attorney Jackson, if the Florida statute says 20 weeks, it doesn't matter what the contract said, correct? We're supposed to go by what the Florida statute says, correct?
That's correct.
In that, the authorization of the check being issued was not dictated by this board. I don't remember it come to a vote. I don't know if anybody up here remember it, but I don't remember us voting saying pay out. Normally, if you're doing a settlement, you're paying that person out
When you say normally where?
everywhere.
Then I'm gonna tell you, double check the record.
So we authorized us to pay out 71,000?
According to your resolution, instead of according to the contract, number one, the resolution. That was not the first time that someone has been terminated and their contract was paid out. What I'm telling you to do is go into the history of this town, because normally it's only gonna happen right here in this town. So go back into the archives to see where anyone in the past has been terminated, paid out, and check to see if that check came back to this council or to the board or whomever.
So I will tell you, Chair, my issue is, there was one signature on that check. It wasn't authorized by this board. No taxes were taken out on that payment. And what letter for settlement was given, because usually if you're gonna do a payout or something like that, there is some kind of settlement letter to go along with it, correct?
Yeah, but we're talking about breaking a law of 20 weeks. You're talking about two different things.
No, it's all working together, but that's fine. So, Ms. Bonds, I will send you an email to address that with auditors, but then I'll also, on the other side, submit documentation. And I'm done talking about it for tonight.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. Just move it along. So we're done with it, because it keeps hitting this agenda and it serves no purpose for the people at all. And I'd rather that happen than to pay $15,000 when right or wrong can be established in the same manner. That's all that I'm
Right,
saying.
and we're not arguing that, Chair, but I'm still saying, if we don't think $70,000 is significant,
I do.
a lot of people's houses could have been fixed at 71,000.
And on the night that it happened, I said, why would we do that with all of that still left on the contract? You're saying what I said that night.
Right, and I will go back and pull it, and I will tell you, on that night, I know I said that 20 weeks is that the contract was illegal and all that. That contract was never reviewed by legal also, correct?
No, you're not correct.
That's so who
But the only
reviewed
thing
it?
I cannot tell you, because I don't have those
Mr. Perry
minutes.
said he didn't review it. And Mr. Jackson Attorney Jackson was already gone, correct?
Well, I reviewed the contract, but I didn't approve of it because it did not have the necessary language in there as related to severance pay.
Okay, so I stand correct. It was reviewed, but it wasn't approved. The language was incorrect, correct?
That is correct, yes.
I'll see that in minutes. So if that occurred, it needs to be in the minutes. It can't be
Ms.
said
King,
right now.
I'll request that for you, and
Let's
then
check
I'll
the
just put it all together chronologically, and I'll send it.
All right, next item on the agenda, federal funds for the omnibus.
On this one, yes, I just had some concerns about how this all came about. And I have 4 questions about this. First of all, I learned about this not knowing exactly how much funding it was.
What's the this?
Huh?
The this? What's the specific thing that you're talking? It says omnibus.
Yes, that's what I'm discussing. I learned, well, let me just say this here. I learned about the nature of these funds when you were on television and you commented about the town buying the hotel. Well, that never was a discussion, and no one on this board didn't know anything about that at all. Okay? It was asked in a council meeting about it. You commented about it, but you didn't really go into any elaborate details about it. Maybe it was just too early at that time, I don't know. So upon, I believe it was maybe sometime around, I forget what time it was, I received a phone call stating that the town, I believe it was Congressman Maxwell Frost. It was the last day, it was on a Friday. It had until 5 o'clock that day to put in a request for appropriation for some funds for Eatonville. I received a call from, there was a call or email from Miss Lee Perry at Florida Rising. I did not write a letter of support that was asked because I didn't know anything about it. So my first time ever really hearing about anything about some funds coming to Eatonville. It wasn't said how much it was or anything of that nature. Then I stumbled across an article that I was looking on the web when I was stumbling across this article. This article here was printed December the 30th. And it listed, and I was going down the list, and it says that this appropriation is for Val Dennis, who showcased her support for the federal, for this federal money, which is $18 million for public safety, and it lists for Central Florida. It lists Eatonville for $2 million for new senior and affordable housing, and $1 million for the Eatonville Community Police and Innovation Program. So that's $3 million coming to the town of Eatonville. I didn't know anything about it, haven't heard anything about it. And I just wanted to know exactly how did this come about? Who, well, my own notes here, like to know that who wrote the grant or who requested that these amounts to be allocated. How did this conversation come up? The other one is that who wrote the proposal for Eatonville. And I'm going to go back over this again. And the third one is, how was the decision, how was it decided as to the needs of the town? And I'd like to know what location that this was already prepped here in Eatonville. Was it from this office? Was it from the CRA office? Where is it from? Because I don't know. So I need to get an answer for all four of those questions that I asked. So let me go back to the first one. Who wrote the grant for, and I'm going to ask this because I didn't say it on the first one, for the Heroes Nightclub, for the $2 million grant for the town for housing, and also for the $1 million grant for the police department.
For the Maxwell Frost, totally separate from Val Dennis. The 2 million and the 1 million is totally separate from Heroes. The 2 million and 1 million, and I've already addressed this in a CRA meeting, I had even showed a PowerPoint. And at that point, it was just an appropriations. It's not really even, they call and say, hey, we got some money available. Do you have, the omnibus bill is when the representatives say what they want. Say whatever their constituents are asking for in their town, it's a part of that. So when they have a certain amount of money that, well, they put in what they want. So they contacted and they said, hey, do you have any needs for the community? You don't really have an amount. You tell them what you want. Prior to being terminated, maybe 3 days, even knowing that he was going to be terminated, because remember y'all fired everyone when I came. So prior to being terminated, I reached out, hey, can you help? Because I did not want the opportunity to pass without us trying to go for some funding. And if you remember the CRA, and I can probably go to their website, and you'll see the town shop. And I showed it on the PowerPoint that night. The town shop was a master plan project that was already done when the CRA was independent. So when that project was sitting there, community policing idea, I think it probably came up. I'm not sure if that was already discussed as well. That's one, it was actually five projects submitted, 5 ideas. Those 2 were chosen as possible projects that would fit. One was because it was affordable housing. And the other, was, it fit in another part of the grant, or of the funds. There are 12 categories, it fit in one of the other categories. So to ask, you know, who approved, it's appropriations, it was, I can't even explain it any other way than that. You want something, hey, send the information in this portal. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm almost positive you even have a copy of it. Because, Director Marlin, and I could be mistaken, I'm just going by memory right now. It was a question about the dates, and I could be wrong, and I probably shouldn't call your name, but I just remember.
You correct.
It was to the left, you remember?
You correct.
So we even talked about it. So I'm gonna ask that you go back in, I would probably April, May, June 2022, because that was under Val Dibbings. So you should have the copies of that. Of that proposal.
Can I have the town clerk to send that to me, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Mrs. King.
exactly what date, it was even a PowerPoint.
And the reason the date came apart is, if I recall, Mrs. Johnson left on 17th of April.
This was already submitted prior to that.
But if you look at the timestamp that I got from the former CEO, Ms. Williams, it was the 20th, 21st, so it was after the Friday date that it was still submitted.
Right, but,
And that's why I brought it up, and I had the hard copy of it.
yes, but you still had access to the account, so so the date stamp
But we,
was two separate things.
right, but if someone expired on the 17th, that you had access to no computer systems on the 20th.
I didn't say
So
they
he was
did,
still
I didn't say
working.
they, no, I did not say they did, Miss Bradshaw was who I was contacting.
But see,
So-
this had Mrs. Johnson's email.
I understand, and if that was discussed as well, but let me finish.
I got
With
you.
Maxwell Frost, it's the same process every time. So with Maxwell Frost, I even came the next day, we walked Catalina, because my first thought was to do a civil engineer and to redo Catalina because of the flooding. But after we walked Catalina, the next day or so, that wasn't going to be viable for whatever reason, I don't remember. And we got back to, is there something else? Again, if you have the opportunity to get money for affordable housing, or not just affordable housing of tearing something down and building something new, but also to fix up, there are 2 units that I thought about. But getting the numbers together, again, getting those numbers together wasn't working out. So again, there was the Elizabeth Park idea. Because that's not a new idea either, that's an old idea. So so we pulled some numbers together for that. From the infrastructure under the ground to I think we said like 20 units on the property. The town, I even talked about this as well. And it wasn't, in the minutes it says 2.5, but I think after we looked at the infrastructure, the building of the buildings and doing anything else that was needed, we were talking maybe about 5.5 million. But again, it's not even an application. But it was a way for us to maybe secure funds for affordable housing that we could build for our citizens here. I don't know. The 2 million I can update, and you'll get copies of the agreement. Because I had wanted Attorney Shepherd to review it, because we actually had a little minute, but it's by the state. So you'll get that to review that, and that's the 2 million to purchase fund land for affordable housing. The $1 million it started out as an appropriation, but we have to take another step and turn that into a grant to be applied for. But with all grants, you have to approve.
Is this $2 million, is this to purchase the hotel here
That's
locally?
the town shop. That, when the independent board was there, that was the whole, it was the thought of redoing Main Street, redoing our Main Street here in town. And that was the idea behind that, to redo that section, that area, because remove slum and blight. And that's one way to do it, give the money to buy the
But
land.
Mayor, you know, I don't object to receiving money, because anytime we can get federal money to help us in our town, that's fine. But the issue is that I think that it should have been handled a lot better, such as bringing your council together, let's all talk about it, and let's all reason as to where we feel where the funds could be spent. Because maybe some other people may have some other ideals and maybe some other thoughts into this, rather than one person planning something that we don't know anything about. Now, I want to ask about this. So this was put together by a formal executive director of the CRA? Is that what you're saying? Is this what you're saying? This proposal?
Which, oh, and the AACH was through,
Who was that?
is that Ms. Reed? No, CRA, right? The African American,
Yes,
the circuit,
the circuit.
yeah.
The African American,
That's for the club, the children's
The
circuit.
1.25,
1.2.
1.25 million.
okay, now what about the $1 million for the?
That's what I was just saying, the community policing actually has to be turned into a grant. It
Okay.
has to be submitted by the 31st, right? You want
27, that's
27.
Okay, so what's the status on this right now?
On which one?
On this, these funds?
I just said, for 2 million, you're gonna get the agreement to read over.
Okay. When
That's
is
the
that
2 million
coming?
purchase. As soon as we get it together, you'll get it.
It's not, is it already been appropriated yet, or do you have the
I
agreement?
can't
Now,
sign
Claire,
it.
be transparent and tell us the truth. What is going on with this? I mean, you get, I mean, you get to the
Director
point
Randolph, you're not listening to me though.
Yes, I am.
I just stated that you'll have the agreement to review. I'm being very
When?
transparent.
When is that
When
gonna
I
be?
give it to you,
Okay,
you will
do you
have
have it
it.
now?
No, I don't have it on me now.
No, you don't have it on you now, but do you have it in your possession somewhere?
I can tell you this week.
So the
next
answer
week
is
you'll-
yes, you do have it, but you don't want to share it right now. Is that the problem?
Either you want me to
You're not
tell.
telling the truth.
Oh my gosh.
You haven't been
Either you
transparent.
want to listen to me,
No, I'm not
or
a child.
not.
I'm not a child. I'm not a school child.
adults have to listen too, or do you
I'm
want to
listening,
listen?
I'm listening to you.
I'm done.
Okay, well, you.
I'm trying to
well,
speak
you're
to
not-
you, but
you're
you
not
won't
being-
listen.
You're not being transparent. I'm sorry. You're not.
Oh my goodness, I don't know how to get,
You're
I don't
telling
know how to
something
get.
that you don't want us
So,
to know.
let me,
like
I'm gonna
always.
finish what I have to, let me finish this. The agreement will be sent to you.
You have a draft agreement.
It is not signed because I cannot sign agreements, but it will be sent to you for your review. And please stop. It will be sent to you for your review. That's for the 2 million to purchase land for affordable housing. And that original location was for the, hotels. The $1 million, I'm gonna say this again, was for the policing. That has to be submitted. I don't know why you submit one as a grant and the other you don't. But they're asking that the 1 million for the community policing is to be submitted as a grant. That has not been done. But again, even with grants, you have to review and you have to approve it before I can even sign off for that acceptance as well. I can't be any more transparent than that. Yes, Director.
Can we just have, and I guess knowledge is key. Can we just make sure that when things like this, it goes across the board, and I hear you say we'll get next week. But I'm gonna piggyback on something Ms. Johnson said, and I actually wrote it down in my notes, while she was up talking. She asked about a master plan for the Francis Jerry Park. But if the entire city, and almost somebody answered for me, if the entire city is considered a CRA and blighted, we should have one big master plan for the entire town. Which master plans do we have right now? Because I'm hearing about all, and then this has been my question, and if you go back and look, I think I requested it, Ms. Bonds did send me some stuff, but there has been so many projects that's supposed to be done, but is it all in one master plan, or are these individual projects? I guess that's my question. Cause, I'm perfectly, totally confused with a lot of stuff that pop up and all that kind of stuff that I didn't even know, and then we said independent board approved it. So is there one master plan or are there individual plans?
In regards to the town's master plan, that's been the conversations I've been saying, that we need a town master plan. In regards to the master plans that you hear me speak of, those were master plans of specific areas that were chosen when you had the independent board. One was for the Denton Johnson master plan. You had a town shop, which was right down here for the hotel, and I thought there was a third one. There was another one. So those were 3 master plans. The reason you have those master plans is prior to, there was money in the budget for master planning, to be paid for master planning. I think it was like $75,000, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that amount. And so that money was spent for what it was purposed for.
So the chair, I hear that and I receive that. But I think if you're doing a master plan, and that's why we have to be clear and understand that the CRA and the town have to be working in conjunction, because I don't understand how a master plan could have been developed from the CRA if the town is not in unison, or they're not in agreement with doing that, then we're wasting taxpayer dollars. So was the town in agreement with all these different things going on also?
The Denton Johnson master planning was a whole charrette. Even at all those meetings were at the Denton Johnson Center. Residents came in, they walked up to the boards. It was maybe like 2 or 3, at least 2 of those meetings.
And I remember that.
So the input went into the Denton Johnson master plan.
I get that. I do. I get that. But I'm saying, on the town side, was the town council in agreement with these master plans also? Because we can't move forward without that other entity, correct? The Denton Johnson property belongs to the town of Edenville, not CRA, correct?
Yes, but I mean, and I hear you, but that's the CRA's job, and that's the director's job to say, hey, this is an area that we can improve on. The money was already sitting in the budget prior to, I think that money had been sitting there since 2018. I wasn't even on the board then. I was on the board to 2022. So a lot of what you're saying was really already done.
No, and I get that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you go out and say, I'm gonna build a $250,000 house on this land, and the land don't belong to me? I guess that's my thought process. So normally, if you want to come in, you're gonna do a development on something. I'm gonna go to that person who owns that land. I'm gonna use Mr. Dix since he's sitting there. If I'm going to Mr. Dix and Mr. Dix got 5 acres, I can't start doing stuff without getting approved from Mr. Dix that that's what I want to actually put on that property, or he's gonna allow me to do it. So that's what I was trying to say. Have those conversations with all these master plans. Has the conversation went on with the CRA and the town, and we in agreement with it on moving forward. Because if not, we just throwing money out there to say we're doing something.
And like I said, these master plans were already done, and I do understand that if the town owns the land and the CRA wants to develop the land, then the CRA would have to come to the town for approval to do that. And something else you said, the CRA and the town should have always been working together. Always. I think that's one of the biggest problems now. It's not about non-transparency, it's really about jobs that are being done really well. But to you, it seems like someone's doing something behind closed doors. Things were getting done. And that's what it looks like. There have been projects. I even think the Barine on the Barine Street lift station, that was through appropriations. That wasn't through a grant. That was through appropriations. That didn't come before the council. So this isn't the first time. And for the, is your hand up? And for the appropriations, The Frost one had 3 days. 3 days. For the other one, that email did come earlier, but there was no one on staff. There's no one on staff to do it. So it got down to like 48 hours for that. So I reached out for help. And even though termination was imminent, they still helped. You know, but that's how all of this was getting done. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had anything. Yes.
And I think you might have answered a couple of questions that I had. I believe that this program precedes my appointment to the board, so I don't have very much information, and I hope my questions aren't redundant, but just for some personal clarity, if I heard you correct, the final decision comes for approval before the board.
That's the agreement that you'll receive.
The agreement comes before the board. And then I'm assuming that within that agreement, there will be like a breakdown of funds and allocation of those appropriated dollars. Am I correct with that?
The agreement is money that's being allocated to purchase land. So it really wouldn't be a breakdown. It's to purchase land for the purpose of affordable housing. And it'll also provide the stipulations for those funds.
Okay.
You know, to make sure that it's used for the purpose intended.
And the reason that I'm asking is because, you know, $2 million, of course, is a lot of money, and I know that the motel was mentioned as a potential land site, and so I'm just trying to reconcile property value with amount of money being spent, and just wondering, is the whole $2 million going to just the purchase of the property, or the purchase and the development of the property? Again, this is me having very little information.
No, that's
about
okay.
what's going on.
The $2 million is only for purchase, but anytime you're dealing with government funds, you have to go according to their procurement.
Right.
So you have to go by the law in procuring the land. So whatever those steps are, it'll be spelled out, and they have to approve everything.
Okay.
So I'm even down to the value, but this is only for land.
Right. Now, is it set in stone which properties? I know you mentioned that the Denton Johnson Center was something that was already discussed. I do remember seeing a presentation regarding that. Again, the motel was mentioned. Are those sites set in stone as we speak? I know you said the agreement is coming. Is there any room for, again, like other directors have mentioned, any additional input, feedback, ideas?
Well, to answer your first question, I need to read it again. When it was submitted for that location, because that location was known to possibly be available.
Okay.
Right? Can it be used for any other? I'm gonna tell you, it probably could, because the idea is to get affordable housing in our town for citizens. And I think it had to be 50 units. So it would have to be a piece of land that will accommodate the fulfillment of it.
Right.
So I'll confirm, and you'll also have the agreement. We can look together.
Okay. And then let's just get through some of this stuff to not be redundant. Do we currently, and this might be a question on the town side, are there currently any projects that are affordable housing going on in the town? I know there was some conversation about some other projects that are going on that I'm assuming that they don't fall into this category, else we wouldn't have submitted a request. We would have double dipped, I'm assuming, for.
Are you talking about the Maxwell Frost with the phone calls?
No,
Letters
I'm
of support?
asking if the town of Eatonville has any other affordable housing projects currently in the works.
Down here on the right side?
Is that affordable
Like-
housing down there?
You mean the
Supposed to be?
units?
Yeah, is that, excuse me, yes, is that,
Well, according to their agreement, it should all be income,
driven based
according to the
developers?
documents that were presented to us. But according to what Councilwoman Randolph said on Tuesday night, I think you said, they said not all of them.
Okay.
So,
I don't know. Whatever they
Just out of curiosity, because like I said, I know you mentioned that there were multiple requests that were put forward. These two were two of the policing initiative and innovation program, in addition to the senior housing and the affordable housing, were two that were selected and supported. And I'm assuming that we wouldn't have had a need if there wasn't something already here. Like, we're not gonna ask for a playground if we already have a playground per se. So I'm just curious as to, and again, this might be a question for the town side, if an affordable housing program is already somewhere in the works. And I know that the senior housing is a part of this as well. Not that I know of any senior housing in the community, but just wondering if there is something similar to what we're asking or what we're looking at already going on.
so the first, this 2 million was March, April, I don't remember, early in 2022. So that was the purchase of that land. And I was gonna say, you asked if there was something else. The Maxwell Frost, to me, there's a difference. If we are doing it, if the town is doing it, then there's more likely a control to make certain that the residents in our town who need it will get it. The down the way is not by the town. And based on their presentation, it was gonna be running through, I think, Orange County Housing Authority. So that's out of our control.
And the reason that I asked is because I see Lee Perry's name has been connected to this conversation, and I know that affordable housing, workforce housing, all of those things have specific definitions. So again, with the double dipping, just making sure that, you know, we're attempting to cover more than one base. But again, I don't know very much about the projects going on down the road, but just in my involvement and attendance in council meetings, hearing what those developers have mentioned, I thought a term like workforce might have been thrown out there in contrast to affordable housing. And I know even earlier when we spoke, when the health presentation was going on, affordable housing was mentioned, and considering affordable housing versus low income, you know, what does affordable housing look like for Eatonville citizens? How many Eatonville citizens do we have that fit that need, et cetera? Just curious, because again, wet behind the ears on this.
Yeah, in regards to workforce housing, it's really housing that states that 2 people live in the unit and each of them make at least $1,800 per month. If I remember that, the parameters around what workforce housing is. And based on that amount of money, then that's the established rental area amount. For affordable housing, I would think would go align with whatever the affordability range is for the county. That's, you know, because we don't have an established amount, parameters for the town. So we usually look at the county or the city. And then for income, that would be like income restricted, this amount, you pay this amount. And based on the presentation that was done for the units, the apartment complex down on the right, that's what those apartments are meant were to be. And there's a deeded restriction that it will be that way for 50 years at least.
Thank you.
All right. Is your hand up? No. Okay,
I
next.
just wanted to comment on what you said. I believe those apartments are 100%, what we call low income. I think, that other gentleman, I think he was just probably just guessing, I mean, just saying something. But I believe they are 100%. I haven't seen anything that it wasn't 100%.
You said 100% low income or affordable?
Whatever, affordable, low income.
It's a big difference.
That's on that.
Whatever.
Yeah, because the affordable is dealing with the market and
No, they
low
won't be like
income.
that.
No, those apartments were supposed to be income restricted. That was
Yeah,
the presentation.
I think
The
they all
ones on the right
same.
were supposed to be income restricted.
Yeah, I think the other gentleman was just speaking something, saying something.
And
Okay,
again, you said that that area encompasses Orange County, not
I was talking about the
specifically.
perimeters.
Right,
I-
not Eatonville specifically.
Well, because we don't usually have, an affordable range here. We look at, we usually use the counties, I can median, there's a chart they always have, for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next item is property at 225 West Kennedy Boulevard. Director.
okay, that is Mr. Tommy Dixon property. I'll have the attorney to refer to that. And, in your reference, if you can, tell us about where we are with the agreement for tenant vacancy for that particular property, and where are we right now with the property?
Are you talking to me, speaking to me or attorney?
To the attorney, yes.
It's my understanding that at this time that there is some activity that's taking place on the property, and my recommendation has been to file or serve a notice of trespass. The entity that is able to handle a trespass notice would be the law enforcement agency. I have suggested, because my understanding is that there isn't and I could be wrong, my understanding is that there's not a policy or procedure in place for a trespass notice to be filed. So I have indicate that I would be willing to put together a trespass policy so that a trespass notice can be issued on the individuals in the home. I just need to know if Attorney Shepherd, as the town attorney, would want to handle that, since that is more of a town issue with the trespass notice for the police department, or if you would want me to do it. As it relates to the individuals in the home, I know that there's been some discussions about eviction notices and things like that. One of the last meetings I brought up that it cannot be an eviction, but it can be an unlawful detainer, which the unlawful detainer requires there to be a trespass notice to be filed, and then the unlawful detainer can be filed as a complaint with the courts. And so that is one of the recommendations that I've made as well, is to get the trespass notice in place, which would then allow me to do an unlawful detainer. As an aside to that, the attorney for the estate of Tommy Dixon has reached out to me. It's been now about 6 weeks now. Reached out to me about the board's position on conveying the property back to the estate for them to handle, which basically that would then become their problem with regards to individuals on the property and things of that nature. I have provided some statutory guidance as to how that can take place with regards to conveying or disposing of property within the CRA area. I would just need to get the board's direction on if that's something that the board would be interested in with regards to conveying the property back to Mr. Dixon, so that the proper document can be put together in order to convey it back to the estate of Tommy Dixon.
Is there any way that you can, I think we discussed this at the last, one of the meetings, maybe the last one. We want to try to get that part done. It seems like it's kind of dragging out a little with the trespass procedures and the law enforcement. We want to try to make sure that we get to the point of getting that accomplished without further delay.
I have a policy so what I did was, when I realized that, from my understanding, that the town didn't have a policy in place, I did pull together some municipalities that have a trespass policy in place so that you can file a notice of trespass. That's something that I can put together rather quickly. I just need the okay from this board for me to do that. I don't want to step on the toes of the town attorney and putting together a process that he would either want to do himself or have some ideas or thoughts about.
All right, well, we can put that on. Can we, Mayor, for the next item, for the meeting, for the next agenda?
Director Randolph, everyone's sitting up here. Attorney Jackson, I guess I'm lost. I thought even when it became, when ownership was fully when ownership was fully to the CRA, it was stated then, you stated then that you couldn't do an eviction. What's the thing that you put on eviction notice because you didn't have the address. Do you remember that?
It wasn't that I didn't have the address, it's that I didn't have the individuals who would be sued or who would be subject to an eviction. There was no, in order to have an eviction, you have to have some form of a lease or some type of an agreement that you are taking an action upon, and the CRA does not have that.
But even in maybe that next month or so, you were given the authority to follow through with any court proceedings. I don't have do you have a timeline at all, Ms.?
Because we've been talking about eviction properties since
For a while.
November, since I started in November. When I did a quick look, I know that the attorney came for the family, came and spoke in February, requesting that the board give the property back. I know in March, I'm sorry, it was inquired the status of that the family had an attorney in February. And I believe that's when the issue came up whether we were going to do an eviction or a trespass. Attorney Jackson said we could not do an eviction because we didn't have the individual's name or mail, and we didn't know who she was or anything. I believe in March is when Shannon Thomas, the representative for the family, came and spoke on behalf of the family, saying that they wanted the board to return the property. And then that's when it was also discussed that we would do a trespass. And I believe, Attorney Jackson, you said that you would draft the trespass because the eviction notice was not appropriate for this circumstance. So that's where I thought we were. And I know there was conversations going back and forth between Attorney Shepherd and Attorney Jackson where this procedure landed. And I think we ended up that it was under the purview of Attorney Jackson doing the trespass.
Right, because in order to do a trespass, you have to have an agency that's going to act on the trespass. And when I went to ask about who would take action on the trespass, I was then told that the police department did not want to take action on the trespass. And also that the police department didn't have a policy in place to take action on a trespass. So that's when I then realized it, because I've already known that then that there was no policy for the police department to act on a trespass notice. I would not have recommended it. So I assumed that there was a policy or a trespass procedure with the police department to say, let's do the trespass and then the unlawful detainer. When I was informed that the police department is not equipped to act on a trespass, that's when I said, okay, then let's put together a process so that they can act upon a trespass notice. And that's the last place we left off. And I believe I even said, whether it's myself or Attorney Shepherd, let me know if you want me to do it, because I don't want to step on his toes if that's something that he would prefer to do. So you are correct. I did say that it needed to be a trespass, but then I was informed that the police department is unable to act on or unwilling to act on a trespass notice.
I don't know what is happening.
So what we should do is, the next meeting, to have that as an item on the agenda for the trespass?
The police department needs to have a process in place to act upon a trespass notice when it's filed. If Attorney Shepherd wants to put that process together, then you'll need to do it with Attorney Shepherd. If he's okay with me doing it, since I've preliminarily started putting something together when I realized there was nothing in place, I can do it, but it needs to be something that I'm given the okay to do. I don't want to take action without being given the proper authorization to do it, but there needs to be a procedure in place for the town of Eatonville's police department when they're given a trespass notice that they can act on that trespass notice.
And the county can't do it? If the town doesn't have the policy, is it not elevated to the county, the sheriff's office? They also have jurisdiction.
I would have to ask the county if they would want to that's law enforcement. Let me just say that. That's law enforcement. If they say they want to do it, that's fine. But typically, inside of a municipality, they leave it up to the law enforcement agency to do those things. But I will leave that up to Orange County as to whether or not they want to act on it.
I don't know right now, do our police department do eviction notices? I don't know that, but.
Well, it's not even an eviction notice.
No.
It's just a trespass.
It's
So,
a
so
trespass.
if someone came onto the town of Eatonville's property right now, let's say for instance, if someone came here and they decided that they wanted to set up a tent right here in this breezeway, that's trespass on county property. Right now, that house, on town property. Right now, the house is town property. And if someone came here and they set up a tent and they said, I'm not moving, the police department is basically saying, we can't make them move. That's a trespass. And that's a process that has to be in place to where if someone comes on, and it's not even just for Tommy Dixon's property, it's for any piece of property that the town has. If someone comes on a piece of town of Eatonville's property and says, I'm not moving, you need to have a process in place where if they don't have a lease, they don't have any, they're trespassing, you get them off of the town's property. So that's what I'm saying.
But we also pay taxes for, the county law enforcement, so it seems to me that in the absence of a policy for the town, then you call the sheriff's office.
I'll leave that up to law enforcement. My role is to determine how I can best help to put things in place for the town. If the county, if that's something that they want to take up, I would have to leave that to them.
I think directly, I'm gonna let directly, I don't know, you finish with directly Randolph?
Yeah, I think that this has been going backwards and forth for at least over a month, hasn't it? This particular issue about the trespass.
It's been longer
It's
than
been
that.
longer than that.
It's been longer than that?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to, so what needs to happen? A phone call to Attorney Shepherd to ask him, was dealing with the police department. That would be
That's in
under,
the town.
that would be within the town.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then maybe that's what we should do, is, maybe Attorney Shepherd needs to be notified, since this is, this particular issue seems like it's under the police department, which is under the town, and not the CRA, something that you would be dealing with.
Because if the CRA submits a trespass
yeah.
notice to the police department, they should be able to act upon it. But they're saying that they can't even act upon it.
So,
I guess my question is, why, isn't that just a call that you can make?
No, you have to, so if I'm gonna do
No,
an
for
unlawful
you to find
detention.
out, is because if Attorney Shepherd has already said, anything dealing with CRA is Attorney Jackson. It seems to me that Attorney Jackson can just find out.
But I guess he's
Yeah.
not.
In regards to the county, being the agency that could act upon the trespass.
But I guess the attorney saying that he can't give direction to the police department, and all that, so we have to come from our legal on the town side.
our side,
On the town side.
the town side.
And a decision would have to be made directing you or authorizing you not to just find out, but to actually move forward. You need direction from the board.
Right.
And why would it be from it seems to me that the ownership of the land, since it's CRA, it's just if the neighbor across the street,
But that ownership is the town, right?
knows the CRA.
It's the CRA, but there's someone, the CRA is going to be asking a law enforcement entity to take notice of a trespass. That's where the issue is. There's no policy in place, from my understanding, this is what I've been told, there's no policy in place for the police department to act upon a trespass notice. So even if we did, as a CRA, submit a trespass notice to the Eatonville Police Department, they're saying that they cannot act on it. So the problem isn't, can I file a notice of trespass? The problem is, when you file a notice of trespass and it goes to the entity within the town, that law enforcement entity cannot or will not act upon a trespass notice.
And I'm hearing you, but I'm also thinking about people that evict people from their homes all the time. If they don't have a rental agreement, they go to the county, file the eviction notice form, and then, am I mistaken that it's the sheriff's office that comes out there and serves the eviction and tell the people they have to get out? They're
Yeah.
not going through the town for approval, so why does the CRA have to do it?
It's not an eviction. What we're talking about is a trespass on the town's property.
And right, but it still seems the same. It's still, but okay, that's, okay. Would you just ask Attorney Shepherd?
My question is not in regards to the trespassing. My question is in regards to the, breakdown of the land. If I'm not mistaken, there were 2 commercial plots and then 2 residential plots that were connected and then somehow broken up. Something was life estated, something was not. Is all of this property being resolved? Is not just the commercial piece, not just the residential piece, but all of the lots related to this issue are being handled? Is that safe to assume?
No, when you say handled, are you mean in terms of getting people off of the property?
In terms of the turning over of the property from the CRA to the estate of Mr. Tommy Dixon?
Whatever was conveyed would be conveyed back. So any portion of that would be conveyed back, and those portions were a part of that conveyance.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Wait, conveyed back. You have to go through, and I'm not hearing you say this, we just said, and we talked about federal statutes for a payout of a termination, but we're not talking about the CRA statutes and the federal statutes governing property that's owned by the CRAs. You can't just turn it over because this board says so.
So I heard y'all say federal. I didn't jump in, but it's not a federal statute. It's actually a state statute 112.
Or state?
Yeah, where it talks about severance
the
payments
CRA,
and things like
yes.
that. Yeah. So I didn't correct y'all because I
But still a
y'all
higher
talking-
statute is the point. You still have other statutes that come into play, and it has to be done according to CRA.
Right. Yeah. So 163.380 talks about how you convey property to a private individual, and that is something that I shared with Mr. Presley as well as Ms. Bonds on how that is done. So there's a direct statutory provision, because when they asked me about it, because one of the things that I was told is that we can't do this, and so I disagreed, and then I said this is a statutory provision that allows you to do that, but it has to be done the right way. So there is a way to convey property back or to convey property under 163.380.
but if it was done the wrong way from the beginning, then it's a legal procedure. And I get that.
That's a whole nother issue.
That's a whole other issue. But I just have two things on that, on this property. First question, is this property properly insured? Do we have insurance on it?
That was asked before, and it was, yes, this is general insurance.
So we got general insurance on it. Next question. Is there electricity going to the property right now currently?
Yes. Power's on it.
How's on? Is water on?
The last time that I checked, the water was out.
So if water's not going to, and I'm just thinking of different ways, if water's not going to a property, then it's inhabitable, correct? By standard? Which means they can be forced out that way also, correct?
That is correct.
So, I ain't a private chicken, but so if there's no water there, then who would have to enforce that to get them out if a property doesn't have running electricity, running water and all that? Who, and I'm ignorant to it, so who has to enforce that be pushed?
My understanding is that would become a town issue.
So is that code enforcement?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Because then, I mean, we can eliminate a lot of this stuff if we just follow by what protocol says, so. Okay.
I think we've been trying to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have.
But if I may, I think one of the things just to think about, I mean, even for the future of the town of Eatonville, as the town continues to grow, as things take place, is to have a process in place for the
Right.
police department, so it's there. And that's what I'm thinking about now, is having something in place for the future as well, and not just for the.
And you have a copy of that from municipality or the county? Do you have that available?
I do, yes, sir.
Can you send it to me, and then I'll put forth it on another side?
Okay. this, the trespass notice.
Are we ready to move on? Item number 8, lien on property at 213 West Kennedy Boulevard. Director Randall.
Okay. This is another property that we've been consistently addressing at most of our meetings that we've had in the last 6 months or more. It's the Mrs. Wilder's property at 213 West Kennedy Boulevard. She is being very consistent in asking that this lien be removed. I think at one moment when we tried to find whether or not there was any ruckus, I believe it was stated there was nothing that was found that she actually received any monies or funds from the CRA. She has provided all documentations pertaining to the improvements that was done on her property, which she provided that information. So she is asking again for the lien to be removed from her property. So I'd like we can talk about that, and Attorney Jackson may have some information that he may want to share on this. About the lien on Mrs. Wilder's property.
Yes, ma'am. I, as well as Attorney Shepard, and we had some preliminary discussions about this, could not find the documentation to support what was listed in the program that she was a part of. In my humble opinion, there are 2 ways to handle this. One way is to handle it through the courts, because Ms. Wilder has shown and has indicated that she is very serious about moving this matter into litigation, or to withdraw the lien on her property as it stands, because there's no documentation to show why that should be in place. Whichever is the pleasure of this board, I have no issues with that. I try cases all the time, but that's the 2 ways to deal with this issue, either in the courts or to reverse that lien.
And this is just only because it's fair. If I speak on the left, I'm speak on the right. The conversation that was had here was not that parties were not aware of the lien. That wasn't the issue. It seemed as though the issue was the type of lien. Because to that, I said, well, that's what I was hearing. And based on, it's signed. This document is signed. And if the issue is on the type of lien, then we fix the type of lien. But to say that, and I know that monies were received because the documentation that I have been given even shows the payouts. And when the property was, when the contractor was asked not to come back, there was still material on the property. And in the last meeting that we discussed this, one of the things I requested was what was the scope of work when the liens, these funds were given of $30,000, because one of the arguments is that the whole $30,000 was not paid, not none of it. Most of this was paid. Here it says about $25,95 was not paid, which means at what 20-something thousand was. And what was the scope of that work compared to the scope of work total, because it's not the same. What you see now is not what the original scope of work was. So it seems there should be some sort of breakdown of, we have a lien. If it's the wrong lien, then we put it on the right document. But the lien was filed, it was signed, it was acknowledged. And then monies were paid. The Excel sheet shows the amounts, what was paid, what was in kind. So I think that it's just like a variance. When Attorney Shepard said variances for a reason, they should not be granted. if we allow this to happen, and the other thing is, if the owners want to refinance the property, we can still keep this lien in second place. It's not going to stop. And if they have no intention of selling the property, this lien is gonna fall off in what, about 2 more years? Because I think the last payout was in 2020 maybe? And it's only a 5-year period. So it's gonna fall off. So and it's not my land, and I know sometimes it's just the principle of the thing, but I don't see why this is still an issue. I don't see, if it's the type of lien, let's fix it. If it's a matter of what was paid and what was not paid, then let's find out exactly what the initial scope of work was versus what was actually done and what's the difference.
There was also mentioned in this regarding out-of-pocket expenses that she had paid herself and was requesting a refund on. So I think even in addition to whatever type of lien that does or does not need to be applied, something that needs to be discussed is whether or not we're okay with refunding $30,000 that we didn't spend.
Well, I don't think she's asking for a refund.
It's in
She's
the cover sheet.
asking for the lien.
No, it's in the cover sheet. It says a request. She had applied for the funds, she was awarded the funds, alleged she didn't receive the funds. Therefore, Ms. Wilder is requesting a refund of $30,000 for out-of-pocket expenses. She even said in her presentation that she had spent those $30,000 and was expecting a refund from, I'm assuming, the CRA.
And that was for her to finish off the project, right?
Correct. So in addition to where those $30,000 went, that former executive director Michael Johnson was an executor for the scope of work for the $30,000. If we're even going to consider the refund scope of work for the $30,000 that she paid out of pocket as well, should be a part of this discussion. And unfortunately, she's not here tonight. I was hoping that she would be, so I could ask some additional questions. But that's definitely a huge part of, because like Chair said, even if the lien is scheduled to fall off, if she's so gracious enough to say, I'll deal with it for another 2 years, she's still looking for a refund.
Well, I think I have to be specific about it, because, maybe what she should do is it's my understanding she wants the lien removed off of her building. I think it may be an option for her, and I know it says here for the refund for the out-of-pocket expenses.
Also in the December 20th,
Unless that
it's
has
mentioned as
changed,
well.
if that has changed, then she needs to make it known.
Well,
She
it's
just wants
mentioned
the
in
lien.
both this cover sheet as well as the December 20th documentation as well. So it seems that that's clearly still on her list of things to accomplish.
And so that question would be, is it $30,000 or is the difference of the money that she had paid to complete the project?
Correct.
My next thing is, was this a loan or a grant?
The grant.
Unless you
I
sold
think
it.
it was a grant.
So it was a grant. And then normally when you're applying for grants or loans, they'll tell you if it's gonna put a lien. Was it in that documentation that a lien will be placed on it?
I can't confirm the documentation, but I remember the conversation. And it was, that conversation was also acknowledged on public record, that a lien would be on that property. So that's why I said, the issue was never, we didn't know about the lien. The issue was, is not on the proper document.
I'm just playing some things in my head. So normally if you're applying for something and they're saying that, hey, you can't sell it for this amount of time, it's stated, and then it'll say that they're putting a lien on it and all that. It's normally documented. We can't go off of that. So is it documented?
Well, you have the lien that was signed.
I understand
I
that.
mean, that's documentation.
Yeah. When you deal with
So
real
you're talking
property,
about
there
the
has to be a
application
writing. Yeah.
process. I mean.
Say again?
When you deal with real property, each term of a transaction with real property has to be documented. So there has to be a document that shows that. And I believe that that's the documentation that, not only myself, but, the town attorney has been looking for as well.
So there was a grant, and this helped me so I can clear my mind and think about next steps too. All other grants, so when we did facade grants for people, $5,000 for their house, did we put a lien on their houses too?
Not on the small ones.
So what was the criteria in order for a lien to go on something? What was the threshold? Is it in the policy? Is it in documentation anywhere?
It was how it was agreed upon. I only know because I was out, I was listening to the conversation. And it was the amounts of the loans, and that's what was part of that.
So what was the threshold? What was the threshold when we put a lien on someone's property? Do we know?
I don't know, I think both of these, there was only two that were done. I think they were both for 30,000, if I'm not mistaken, around there. And, it was agreed that a lien would be placed on the properties. For, I think they're both 5 years.
And when was that agreed upon?
When they were given, I mean, it was what, 2019, 2018?
So after they signed it or before?
Before. It was in a meeting. It was before any money was dispersed.
Ms. King, you have a lot of work. I sent you some emails tonight, so I see you in expression over there right now. So I would love to hear that conversation that went on in that, and to give me some clarity. And maybe if I can make this clear, maybe it'd be nice to send out, if we can find that, maybe we send it to everybody so then we all can hear it at once, or we can play it at once, and then we can come to a conclusion and make a decision. I think that's what holds up a lot of our stuff when moving forward. We wait, we ask for stuff, and then everybody don't get it, so then one person may get it, and other people don't get it, and then they just keep moving on and on. So that'll be my recommendation.
But keep in mind also, even if it's in a verbal record, it still has to be reduced to writing. When it comes
Right.
to property, real property, it has to be reduced to writing.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Christie.
Did you want to add something?
I did, in light of the request that has been made, the meeting that you're referring to, is that prior me coming on the CRA as the clerk?
Yeah, that's before you.
Was that during the time that there was an independent board?
I believe it was.
I'm just, for the record, there's potential record. I mean, there's potentially, I may not have that audio.
If you don't mind, ma'am, what is the audio?
I think you wanted
You don't mind me
you
asking?
wanted audio
When you saying that it was
in reference to the meeting.
Oh, me for this lien?
Mm-hmm.
It was one of these meetings. No, you were here.
But
He talking about the initial.
for the initials, you said they knew it then,
Oh, that was, it would have been a CRA meeting
So
prior to.
you have all the CRA files and audio and meetings and all that?
I will take a look. Between me and Nicole Bunn, we'll try to locate that for you.
Thank you, Ms. King and Ms. Barnes.
My question might be a little, semi-irrelevant to Ms. Wilder's situation, but I do remember when Ms. Wilder came before us, that Mr. Barani also came before us regarding his lien as well. And so when we're looking into the type of lien, if the lien stands, et cetera, because I see Mr. Barani hasn't come back before us, can we just verify or clarify?
And do it all at once?
Yeah, that whatever applied to her also applied to him in regards to just the lien, because, so we don't have to, retrace these steps. If we can just, if it's the right lien, if we need to switch the lien, 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing, that way we're said and done, if possible, not adding to your list, Ms. King.
I'll do that.
All right, that's everyone. Staff report, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. To address Ms. Johnson's question about the status of the pay plant and pay program, until we do some budget adjustments and we know exactly where we are, and we know if there's funds to allocate for this fiscal year, we'll make that determination when that's done. If not, then we'll be putting on the, for the budget for next fiscal year. And that is all I have right now.
Attorney Jackson, you have anything?
No report.
Director Creighton.
Only one thing in my report tonight. I attended the most recent Florida League of Cities CRA training. I thought it was extremely instrumental, especially as a new member to the board. I was in attendance with Director Randolph. If y'all missed it, y'all missed something really, really good. They had a lot of resources that are available to us that can potentially answer some of our discrepancies here. And so thank you, Executive Director Bonds, for shoveling that information down the pipeline. It was greatly appreciated. That is all.
Director Daniels.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I'm actually quite pleased that I see things are moving on this side as well as on the other side. There's been some hold up. Thank you, Ms. Bonds. When I'm requesting information, I'm getting it expediently. I appreciate it. My only thing is update on the bylaws. If y'all can send out those bylaws, I would love for those to be finished in stone on the next meeting. So I'm already requesting for that to go on the agenda, so I'll have to send you an email on it. But can we get the bylaws so we can finally finalize the bylaws and be on the board? And I'm still going to request, like I did last meeting, we do need to do a budget adjustment, but we need to have adequate documentation to go along with why the budget adjustment needs to happen. And just thank everybody for coming out.
Director Randolph.
Yes, thank you very much. The training in Tampa was very good, CRA. We learned a lot, and look forward to the next training whenever it's scheduled. Let's see, I think we covered everything. It seems like a lot of things are going along very well. However, I want to bring to the attention that Mrs. Vaughn's contract was up on April the 28th, and it wasn't discussed nor brought to the board. So right now, she's working without a contract. So we need to either extend her contract, and if she's under contract, when are we going to post the position for the CRA administrator or director? So we need to, that needs to be handled, because right now, you're working without a contract. And I don't think that's our policy here in the town, nor the CRA, is to work employees without a contract. So we have a 6-month contract, and that was up on April the 28th. So for whatever reason, if you're going to remain in that position until we find fit to hire someone, a qualified person, then we need to extend your contract for a certain period of time.
When Ms. Bonds was presented to the board declined, and we didn't confirm her as the director. So, because we needed someone to be in that position as mayor, and this has come out before, because you received an email, then it was a temporary hire. So what expired was a temporary hire. So when that expired, we just extended the temporary hire until we make a determination of what's going to happen with the director position. And looking at Tuesday's meeting, the org chart is, and how that's being structured, the two are going to work together. So the extension should hopefully work until there's some final decisions on if it's going to be full-time, part-time, or how it's going to work.
Okay, so right now, what you're saying is that
It's
we are
going
extending this temporarily?
Yeah, we had to because it was like the end of April. So we had to go ahead and extend it until we have a permanent hire.
Okay, so when is it, when was it extended? At the end of,
It had to be done by the end of April.
well, April has
So
passed. This is May.
Right,
So
that's
it's
why I said it had to
extended
be
until what?
extended. Was it
Okay.
3 months or 6 months?
3 months.
3 months.
Okay. So that would be from April 28th until what, June or July? July? Extended?
July.
July? Okay. Thank you, everyone. That's all I have.
The only, if I offended anyone tonight, I apologize. And I know you feel it because things have been going so well in so many other places and we've been growing, but it seems like we get right here and we're stuck. And I just want us to move forward. But I do want to address, the Catalina master plan is kind of, this is what was going to happen and it stopped. Catalina, and I just stated about the walkthrough and how that did not work out, but even prior to that, I don't know the park in Lake Idaho. The name of that park, is it Lake, around Lake Idaho? There's a certain park over there that, whatever the prior director.
What all we're asking is to have.
No, let me finish. The prior director was looking at doing a master plan. And I'm saying that to say that the persons that were going to be contacted, I had already reached out to them to answer your question. I cannot give you a time frame because that time frame now, to me, works in with the stakeholders, it works in with everything else. Because otherwise we'll keep doing master plan. And it should fit into one large master plan. So you ask for a time frame, and I can't give you a time frame, but I mean, that doesn't help you any, but that's where we are. What I can say for the community policing, and you know how grants work with the federal government, that kind of time frame, you know, if you look at when the $2 million, we just received a $2 million agreement, that was in 2022. But that was not, so you might be looking at another year for this. So, I mean, still might be a year if the grant is awarded for community policing, if that's something that can be used for. Okay, and I can't even say that.
I don't think I'm in a position to go back and forth.
Yes, so.
Here, so I'll schedule a meeting, or I'll ask to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Other than that, I mean, thank everyone. With that, I move that meeting be adjourned.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't know what time it is.
8:53.
It's 8:53.
Thank you. You have a wonderful evening.
Happy New Year.
You look so relieved.
You ain't got one week.
How you doing?
Everything? Yes, okay. So what about 3? 7? Or, you know what?